There we go. Now maybe we're actually live. Yeah, just use StreamYard with no operating instructions. So, yes, 7 minutes late, but nothing to do with coffee this time. Apparently, when you go to create a live stream in StreamYard, it wants to play 20 questions, and then you got to figure out why it won't let you go live because it wants something for the other thing, and you can't figure out how to remove that thing. And that's why I'm a mechanic. It doesn't work. You usually just hit it with a hammer and get it out of the way. Anyway, guys. So, it's Friday. Homestead happenings. Literally back of the envelope notes. So, Nicole is in Texas for whichever one of the 15 events that she's at. I think it's like Exit and Build or something, but I can't keep track of which one she's at when. So, anyway, so I've got one of the last things on my notes is like the spring schedule, but I'm just going to hit that first because, yeah, life is complicated right now. And when I say complicated, like all over the road. So we went from it's spring, so all the weeds are coming up and everything's starting to grow, blossoms on the trees, all of that, right into prep for self reliance. Then we went from that, come back, unpack from that, go straight into her spring workshop. Her spring workshop's over, pack up from that, and then she bounces out to Kansas, comes back for like 3 days, and then bounces out to Texas. So I've mostly been here by myself, and of course, with spring and everything growing, and baby animals and everything else, it's been a bit chaos. And it says, looking at, okay, I'm trying to figure the whole StreamYard thing out. I've seen the screen before, but I don't know how to operate this thing. So, anyway, things have been pretty chaotic. Just, 10,000 things to do and not enough time. So, just as an example of that, we picked up the rabbits from John Willis, and apparently one of them was probably pregnant, and we ended up with babies literally on the ground. So, you go through the whole, get a nesting box, get the stuff, and get the things, and get everything in there, and separate the rabbits, and that makes things more complicated because now I've got an extra, food and water dish that's got to stay full and all that kind of thing. And last week we said, we had the babies, they were in the nesting box. We had three of them that were alive, and then I went to check them after the live stream, and one of them was laying on top of the hay and was just stone cold. So I dug the other two out, and they were stone cold as well. So we ended up losing all three. So I pulled the nesting box out and moved the other rabbit back over so that, one less food and water dish that I've got to top up every day. But it's been a couple of weeks of stuff like that. So, I mean, just rolling straight into, livestock. We've got that with the rabbits. I've still got the rabbitry that I need to build the footer to put it on, which I haven't gotten to just because there's so much stuff going on. And like, I'm going to get off of here and probably start thinking about making something for lunch, because if I don't, then I just won't eat until, 9 o'clock tonight. So we've got that going. And then, other than that, I mean, the ducks right now are, I can't even call it a full on rebellion. It's like when it rains, you basically end up with duck Mardi Gras. And I'm going to go yell at the dog because the dog is inside barking. So give me 1 second. So, perfect example of having to do this by yourself. Normally, when this would have happened, I would have gotten up, taken care of the dog, and Nicole would have continued talking. But when you're here by yourself, you end up with a dead spot in the live stream. Anyway, what was that? Oh yeah, duck Mardi Gras. When it rains, it's basically duck Mardi Gras. There's water puddles everywhere. The ducks are outside having a party, and they don't want to go to bed because they're rather play in a mud puddle. Now it's like duck Mardi Gras combined with the Super Bowl, combined with Christmas, combined with Thanksgiving because it's a cicada year, and so like you go out in the pasture where I've got grass that's at least knee high, and you can just see cicadas at the top of the grass all over the place. And so the ducks are having a blast going through and eating cicadas. And that also means they're full, so they have no interest in their food, and they'd rather stay out. Plus, it's raining right now. So, they can stay outside, play in the mud, and eat cicadas, or they can go to bed. They want to stay outside, so every night right now is literally chase every single duck from all four corners of the holler all the way to the duck coop. I'm ready for, people think cicada season is cool. I'm ready for it to be over so the ducks will just go to bed. I think cicadas are cool and all that, but yeah, bro, you're making my life complicated. So, anyway, we did end up with one duck that there was 5 or 6 of them up in the goat pasture. And so I went to run them back down to the coop, and one of them kept falling over. Not really falling over, more of doing a belly flop. And so I wound up grabbing her, which was not difficult at all, because as much as she tried to run away, she couldn't get up. So I grabbed her, and we ended up putting her into quarantine for a couple of days. So just a dog crate on the cedar wood chips up under Taj Mahal with food and water. And I let her stay in there for about 3 or 4 days. She laid 3 eggs. And today she was looking okay. Not perfect, but she was looking well enough. So I decided to just go on and turn her loose. And, hopefully she makes it. She looks like she's feeling a little bit better, but we'll see. We'll give it another couple of days and see what happens with her. So then we got the sheep, which everybody's doing. It's mostly just, sheep are acting like sheep. The dogs are acting like dogs. Everybody's just over there doing sheep and dog things. So there's that aspect. And then we've got Stormy, the bottle baby. She actually got to spend her first night in the pasture with everybody else, like a big sheep. And then this morning, because we've been getting some really cool nights, but last night it was not supposed to rain. The rain started sometime really early this morning, but that was kind of a situation where, like, if she gets wet at 4 o'clock in the morning and then I go over there at 6 to go check on her or bring her back or give her a bottle or make a decision about what I'm going to do or whatever the case might be, not really enough time for her to like get hypothermia and die. So I was like, I'll just leave her out there overnight. So I went over this morning and, it probably had been raining for at least an hour or two. Everybody was up in a tree line. She was right there with everybody else like she should be, which is good. She wasn't like off by herself or anything. And she was a little bit wet, but not sopping wet. But it's supposed to rain all day, part of tonight, and then start up again really early tomorrow morning. So being here by myself right now, I was just like, I'm going to go on and just pull her back over here where I can keep an eye on her and I know she can dry out and just reduce that risk of her getting sick. So I pulled her back this morning. And then also on the note of the sheep and the weeds and everything else over there, it's another thing that I've been like since before self-reliance. If I have like 20, 30 minutes, I've been over there on the mower because there's like the lower half of the pasture is fairly well under control at this point. We've thinned out a lot of the weed seeds. The grass is actually starting to dominate down there. The upper half of the pasture, not so much. And there's basically two main areas, or I mean, it's kind of more than two, but you've got really heavy briar vines that I'm still trying to deal with. And then you've got what used to be briar vines. And like, I got all that stuff trampled or mowed to the ground, and everything that could possibly come up is coming up in that spot. And so the grass is not coming up in those areas. So that was one of my big pushes, in between, before self-reliance up until about now, was trying to get all of those weeds knocked back so that the grass actually stands a fighting chance of germinating and coming up. And then we also have a couple of areas where it's like all woods. And so I've basically paddocked around the woods for the most part. And I usually push my paddock lines at least back up into the edge of the woods. So like this morning when I say that they were up in the woods line, that's what I mean is, there's 10 feet of woods line on the side of that paddock. And so that's where everybody was hanging out this morning. But those couple of areas that, where we haven't really run the sheep because it's all woods, I haven't run them up in there a lot because there's nothing up in there for them to eat. Well, at least there wasn't until this year. Because this year, the areas like that are around the paddocks where we've been running the sheep exploded with all sorts of grass and other weeds and stuff, and all of the smaller saplings that were up in there were just, bright green. And so one of those sections, I actually just ran the sheep through as a paddock. And they had about, 10 to 15 feet at the top of that paddock that was just grass, which is where I'd put, the shed with the dog food and their water and the bowls for the sheep pellets and all that kind of thing. But then they had access to all of that growth in that woods line. We also try not to run them through there in the winter time because of the leaf litter, and it can have listeria in it, which will kill a sheep dead. But right now, it's like that's the perfect time to run them through there. And so I'm going to be really curious to see what comes of that, like later on in the season, but really next spring. Actually getting them up in there, grazing it, triggering all of the enzymes and the microbiology and everything, and then adding that extra fertility directly to that area. I'm really curious to see what happens in those spots. And then also with the upper end of the pasture, another reason that I've been pushing so hard to like keep that stuff under control is if I can do up there what I did towards the bottom, that's going to give me probably 3 more paddocks of field hay for the winter, which that's also 3 more paddocks in addition to those 3 that they're not going to eat down before winter. So technically that's kind of more like 6 paddocks of field hay, which means they're not going to be eating as much baled hay. So we've already had the conversation about once the first cutting of Timothy grass comes in, we're going to go pick up a load of hay. We're planning on getting the same amount that we had last year, if not maybe a little bit more. But I'm really hoping not to go through as much next winter. But, you know, it's spring and the prep for that starts, well, like a month and a half ago. So, anyway, I think that's about all I've got on livestock. So, Grow. She was really, 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 really excited about the wild rose harvest. Which I'm not going to lie, like come winter, yes, when she uses the rose leaf petal things in salads and makes tea with it and everything, I'll appreciate it then. As for now, I just had to prune back a ton of that stuff and it's not pleasurable. So that is I wouldn't even call it a spot of contention between me and Nicole, but it's like she likes the roses. I despise them. I would like to make them go extinct. Like, yeah, they can exist, just not here. Like, I just don't like them. But she did get like a big bowl of rose petals. So that will be nice come winter time. And then beans and beets. So she did get up into the garden. She's got a row of beets, or might be more than one row, but she's got beets coming up. When she was back here for her 2 or 3 days, she did manage to get some beans in the ground, and we got a bunch of the weeds pulled / cut / removed out of the garden area. So that's kind of been one of those deals where it's like when we have time, we kind of force ourselves to go up there and make a little bit of progress and, you know, try to do like 1 row at a time or something, at least get 1 row done. So we've got some stuff that she's gotten in the ground, and then she was hoping to get the tomatoes in up there. That did not happen. So I'm probably going to try to get the tomatoes in today or tomorrow. More because, like, right now I have to water them twice a day. And if I put them in the ground, then I don't have to do that. So it just gets something off of my plate while she's gone. So I'm going to try to get that done. And then kind of doubling back to the whole spring schedule thing. Like, one thing that we are definitely not growing right now is thyme. So I actually made a decision, I don't know, mid-April ish, that like I'm literally 5 feet over there is a hydroponic system. And literally all I have to do is put the plants in there and balance the nutrients and get it plugged in. And I'm not going to. And that was an intentional decision because I don't really see the benefit. Like, there's not that much extra benefit compared to what we're already growing. And yes, it would be nice to have a bunch of extra peppers or whatever that I would get off of that to, make some hot sauce or something. But with the amount of time that I have right now, I would much rather put the effort that I would put into that system into something like the area behind, like the backside of this property that has never really grown anything other than invasive thorn vines and locust trees and privet, and trying to get that to a point to where we can turn it into grass and a place where we can plant more trees. And I've kind of got that back area kind of over the hump to where it's actually starting to grow weeds, like actual weeds and not just like thorn vines. And so it's like I would much rather put my effort in back there right now than a couple of extra pepper plants. So I actually made several, like, there's another couple of raised beds and stuff that I've got here that I'm not completely letting go. I'm still, like, I yanked all the weeds out of them when they started coming up, especially the box elder. But I'm not going to really work those like I normally would. And Rachel says, it looks like I'm in a different spot. Yes. That's something I actually meant to mention at the beginning is, since Nicole's not here, I get to pick where we're going to do the live stream. So I chose one of my favorite spots, and I call this the land between two worlds, because over there you have, like, nature and rain and fresh air and actual running water, and back there you have, fake air conditioning, fake running water, that comes out of a faucet. But you also have, chairs and blankets and stuff like that. And where I'm sitting right now is kind of the best of both worlds. I got the fresh air from over there, plus I've got my really comfortable chair. So, yeah, this is one of my favorite places to be. I would rather be sitting right here than inside, even on a hot day. So, there's that. Anyway, I think that's about all I've got for grow at this point. So the last couple of things that I've got, she mentioned something, and I've heard different numbers, but she was doing some calculations with the battery in the camper, which she took to Kansas with her. And apparently the inverter is drawing a significant amount of power off of the battery just by itself. And it just, the number she was giving, like, it just sounds like that's not correct. Like, not that the numbers are lying, but it's like that inverter should, it sounds like it's drawing more than it should be for some reason. So we need to hit Sean up about that and figure out what the deal is with that thing. But hopefully when she gets back, then we can start playing at that a little bit more. And then the other big thing that I have was the vehicle situation. And we got, so we got the Tundra, and then I picked up a Jeep Cherokee. And the Tundra we took to the shop, spent an excessive amount of money to get that thing brought back up to speed as far as services go. But I mean, they literally went through everything: the timing belt, the water pump, all the fluids, the brakes. We had to go down to Murfreesboro, and she drove down there, and I went to drive the Tundra back, and I went to pull out of the parking lot, and I went to step on the brakes, and the truck came to an abrupt stop, and I was like, help. They definitely adjusted the rear brakes because they work a lot better now. So I'm really hoping that we are not going to have any maintenance issues on that thing for a significant period of time. So that's going to be good. And then the Jeep that I picked up, I'm doing most of the stuff on myself. And it needed a little bit of attention, but I've got that thing almost where I'm comfortable with it. As far as immediate stuff, spark plugs and changing the oil and all that kind of thing. It definitely needs new suspension, but it's not an immediate thing, so I'm going to plan that out a little bit and try to do it right and only do it once. So I'm going to kind of bite the bullet on the little bit of a rough ride on that thing for the time being. So we have dumped a lot of money into vehicles in the last couple of weeks, but really hoping that the dumping money into vehicles is at a stop at this point. And then we also, the one other thing that we need for the Tundra is a new set of tires, which we already know, like, tires is one area in life where I am an absolute fanboy. And unless it is a mud puppy, in which case I'm putting Toyo mud terrains on. If it's not a mud puppy, I'm putting Toyo AT3s on it. Like, I don't drive cars, so I don't know what I would put on a car. It'd be a Toyo. But for anything else, I put any truck, SUV, I'm putting Toyo AT3s on it. Like, it's just that good of a tire. So we know about how much that's going to cost. And then I've been, instead of just throwing everything in the dumpster, there is a bunch of stuff that I kept, like some brass fittings and some old water faucets and a bunch of electrical wiring. And so I actually made a scrap metal run 2-3 days ago, and it was a little over $300. So that's going to pay for roughly half of the tires for the Tundra. And I probably could have gotten a little bit more out of that. But I was sitting there staring at a pile of, like, Romex that's like all 14.2. And it's like, let me look up the price of copper. And it's like, stripped copper wire is like $2.45. Unstripped copper wire is like $1.65. It's like, yeah, it's not worth my time for 80 cents to sit here and strip all of that. So it was like, I don't remember what the numbers were, but I probably lugged like, I think it was like 40, 50 pounds of unstripped Romex. And so, yeah, I probably could have gotten an extra couple of dollars for that, but the amount of time that would have taken would have just been insane. So I was like, that is totally not worth it. But, keeping all of that stuff around until such time, because it's been in my way for like months. But keeping it was definitely worth, paying for half of a set of tires. So, anyway, I think that's about all that I've got. Yep. That's all I've got on my list for today. So hopefully by next week, Nicole will be back for Homestead happenings next Friday, and we will start to be getting back into a little bit more of a routine. So anyway, I guess that's all I've got for today. So until next time, guys. Bye.